Hi, everyone. Welcome. We'll get started in just a few minutes while we wait for a couple more people to join. I love it when people put where they're from. We have New York, Toronto. Some Canada. A lot of New York cities, New York. Great. We'll get started. So, hi, everyone. My name is Victoria. I am the Channel and Field Marketing Manager for the East Coast and Canada over here at Critical Start, and welcome to Navigating the Cybersecurity Slopes. Before we begin, we'll go over a couple housekeeping items. So this session is being recorded. You will receive the recording within 24 hours post-event. We will be launching polls throughout the presentation, so please just take note. On the right side, you will see a little area where you have been putting your chats. That's where the poll will launch. Make sure you only click your answer once, otherwise it'll disappear. Feel free to continue to use the chat function throughout. The more interactive this session, the better. You are automatically muted, so no worries. I know sometimes it gets confusing. If you would like to ask a question live at the end of the event, just click raise your hand and I can bring you up on stage. Otherwise, just ask in the chat or the Q&A area. You also will all be receiving your ski goggles by end of week or early next week. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to the presenters, and we'll start off with Chris. Chris?
Yeah, hey, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Chris Oker. I have been part of the Critical Start family here for just under 3.5 years. I started as a senior customer success manager, have a background in technology and sales, and as of about 2 years ago, I have taken over part of the team here at the Critical Start Customer Success Management team. So with that, I'll pass it over to Adam.
Hey everyone, my name's Adam Neal, and I'm a detection development engineer with Critical Start. I've been at Critical Start pretty much the same amount of time as Chris, 3.5 years, and just got a background in, IT and cybersecurity. So with that, I think we're going to go ahead and go over our agenda for today. So we already did housekeeping and speaker intros, and we're going to start off talking about the Cyber Research Unit here at Critical Start, or also known as the CRU, CRU. And it's really comprised of two teams. So we're going to talk about the cyber threat intelligence piece and then the threat detection engineering piece, which is the team that I'm a part of. From there, we're going to go on to talk about the pyramid of pain and how that applies to, our strategy and mindset. And then Chris will take it away and kind of, take you down the slopes and ropes of what Critical Start is all about, what we offer as, MDR service provider, and what we're moving towards in the future. And then after that, we're going to do a Q&A. And like we were saying, there's going to be some polls throughout, and I think we've got a poll coming up right now. So what is your favorite winter activity or sport? I think that should pop up on your screen.
Yep, just make sure you're over and there we go. I see some people doing.
Nice, nice. What about you, Chris? What's your choice?
Oh man, favorite winter activity is staying warm, number one. But other than that, honestly, I have never been skiing. I've never been snowboarding. So it might be something I'll look to do the next coming winter months. How about yourself, Adam?
I've always been partial to some good old sledding. It used to snow by a big hill by my house growing up, and we just get a cardboard box and just fly down.
Fun.
So
Excellent.
Oh,
Well, I
that
know
was
we
a
might
good
give it
one.
a little bit more time for the poll, but for anybody who is not aware where to go to see the poll, if you're staring at the screen at your top right-hand corner, you should see chat, messages, and poll. Feel free to click there and tell us what your favorite sport is.
I'm
Nice.
quite surprised. A lot of there's one vote now for I do not like winter. That is where I would have like winter.
Looks like skiing's
Awesome.
winning out there. Good choice.
hmm They came to the right program today. Those ski goggles.
Nice.
I
All
love
right.
it. All right, I'll close out the poll. Enjoy.
Awesome. I'll go ahead and get started then. Let's see. So starting off, I just kind of want to go over what does a CREW team do? And, like I said, CREW stands for Cyber Research Unit. And, that's the larger umbrella that I'm under here at Critical Start. And like I was saying, it's really comprised of two separate but very interwoven teams. The first is our cyber threat intelligence team who, gather actionable data that us on the detection engineering team can then take and actually create final products and detections that can be used in the various security products that our customers use. And essentially we want to be an extension of anybody's cybersecurity team. We want to help fortify defenses and just generally elevate security posture through any of the actionable intelligence that our cyber threat intelligence team gets and the analyses they perform. So we'll take their information and then turn it into, some actual actionable material that we can use to, help protect our customers and ourselves. And so going on from there, a CREW team is quite, we have quite an extensive amount of experience in different backgrounds, whether it be, cybersecurity, academic, or, military. We have people from every walk of life. And I feel like that is very important in adapting to threats and having, a creative mindset to approach these emerging threats because things are changing every day. So it's, good to have a team with a diverse skill set that can, approach challenges. And lastly, our main goal is to enhance our managed detection response services by providing threat research, universal detection content, adaptability to emerging threats, and just a general proactive defense strategy. So, to sum it all up, the CREW team is all about finding out what's out there that maybe people don't know about, or it's just on the brink of being a problem, and we take that research that our team does and are able to turn that into something tangible for our customers. And so just to sum up threat intelligence a little more and talk about how we specifically gather our intelligence for these purposes. First it starts off with data collection, which is whether it be open source or paid data collection. We really dive in there and dark web scraping, seeing if there's any chatter or anything looming based on emerging threat groups or any new malware as a service schemes that are coming out. We collect all of that information, and from that we can perform analysis and see, okay, which industry verticals are going to be affected, which of our customers should we reach out to and say, hey, we noticed that this threat actor is targeting this industry. And we really focus in on providing that actual end product that customers can use to be more informed and protect themselves. And like I said, we provide those intelligence products, and our cyber threat intelligence team, I'll go over more of them later, but we provide multiple different products and services that customers can use, whether it be write-ups or just general threat summaries or detections. And moving on from there, I want to talk a little bit about the limitations of standard intelligence feeds. Intelligence feeds are great tools, and they're very useful for, taking in data on, any threats that are out there or getting IOCs, indicators of compromise. on any new threats, like, okay, maybe I should block these IPs or watch out for this domain. But oftentimes the, regular standard intelligence feeds only provide surface level information. They don't really dig in on the threat. There's no, malware reverse engineering, for example. There's no, here's how this really ticks, here's how you can detect it. It's a little bit reactive in nature, because oftentimes, they're useful tools, but they'll be behind, what a more experienced cyber threat intelligence team is uncovering more proactively. And also there's that lack of contextualization there, for everybody. And so there's no specificity of, this is actually affecting our sector, our, business. Whereas, we or another, cyber research unit could go in and say, hey, this is something you may need to specifically look out for because they're targeting, your type of business. And so in that, they're ultimately kind of a one size fits all solution. So that's where having, an actual in-house cyber research unit can be, an effective strategy. And so I want to talk a little bit about, why we're different and what we do to protect our customers and actually, add value to your cybersecurity service. So like I said, we try to, move past the limitations of just relying on intelligence feeds, and we perform more advanced analyses like, malware analysis, malware reverse engineering, and all of our detection content is customized based on the, research and malware analysis that's done by our team. So, we're not just plugging things in or just using hashes. We're, digging into the tactics and techniques used by attackers and actually, creating content that is going to tackle these emerging threats. So, we have this deep actionable intelligence and proactive threat anticipation. We're, looking to anticipate threats and not just react to them. Like I said, intelligence feeds can be, lagging behind weeks or, sometimes days. And it's important to stay on top of, what's really emerging. And so we try to perform predictive analysis to stay ahead of any potential risks that are out there for our customers. And we also provide tailored insights and detections. We work hard to create detections that aren't just surface level. We want to make sure that, we dig down and create something that's really useful and not just creating false positives. We perform very, strict testing to make sure we're not, creating a bunch of alerts that aren't necessary. We try to really drill in and make sure when we alert on something, it's something you want to see. Now, on top of that, like I was saying, we have a lot of comprehensive analysis and research, whether it just be, just our general threat research team writing white papers and performing, an static and dynamic analysis of malware or malware reverse engineering and deobfuscation. And on top of that, we try to align everything with advanced frameworks, most notably the MITRE ATT&CK matrix, to make sure that, we're covering all the gaps that we have. So, to sum that all up, traditional intelligence feeds provide a nice baseline, but often lack the depth, specificity, and proactive stance necessary for, all of the complex emerging threats that are coming out today. And so we try to fill those gaps in and offer something a little more sophisticated and useful to our customers. And so one way we do that is through our, actual cyber threat intelligence products. And we use these to, enhance our security operations center. We use them to help our analysts and our customers. So we provide security advisories, which are timely notices of emerging threats. You'll see them posted in our platforms. We'll say, hey, this threat is emerging, and if you're in, this business vertical, maybe you need to watch out, or, batten down the hatches and or patch this. And we'll also provide weekly intelligence summaries, which are more general summaries of any cybersecurity related events, which can be, threats or other things that may be impacting cybersecurity as a whole. And also we allow our customers to ask for more information, which we call RFIs, request for information. And you can submit a ticket into our cyber threat intelligence team, and we'll respond back to you if you say, hey, I'm really worried about Darkgate. What can we do? And is there any research that, might help us protect ourselves? We can say, oh yeah, we've, done this analysis. We've written this paper. Here's this information we can provide you. So, we really try to provide a material benefit to customers that they can use. And we also provide QBR reports, which are breakdowns of alerts that you've received in our platform over the quarter. And this can be really great for any trend analysis or seeing, maybe this is like a certain area you could, fix things up or change any settings to maybe, prevent these alerts or protect your business. And so, Cyber Research Unit overview, we just try to provide actionable threat intelligence, comprehensive threat research that your team and we can use, universal detection content no matter what product you're using, adaptability for all the emerging threats, and a lot of client collaboration. We love working with our customers. And now I'm going to go a little more in depth on the Cyber Research Unit lifecycle and kind of taking it from the start and all the way down to moving through my team, detection development, and creating a real detection that can provide value for customers. So it starts off all with the CTI team, Cyber Threat Intelligence. And what they do is identify threats. They take in all that information, search the dark web, and pull in all these different sources and analyze and try to find trends and see, okay, this is something new, or hey, we've already written detections for this. We're covered for this, and they sum that up in a nice document and pass that on to our threat research team, which works closely with malware reverse engineering. And they'll do technical research and dive in a little bit more and say, okay, I see that, this new threat is using, these MITRE techniques, or maybe this technique that we haven't seen before at all. And they'll do any, base level malware analysis. And that involves actually, detonating the malware on our testing range and seeing, okay, what the heck does this do? Because at a certain point, write-ups are a great source of information, but it helps a lot to, dig into the code and see, all right, what is this malware doing? And can we, detect it at a baseline? Are our products, covering this? Or do we need to drill down further and, think about this and see where we can detect this where no one else can. And from there, if further analysis is needed or if there's a lot of obfuscation involved, we'll pass it on to malware reverse engineering, which is, very technical research. They'll go in and break down the malware and, piece by piece, very cool to watch. And, they'll label everything and say, hey, this is calling this, or they'll break it down by MITRE tactic and say, this is everything that the malware is doing that we could possibly detect, and here's what we could do to try and tackle that. And after that, that's all wrapped in a bow and passed on to my team, detection development. And from there, we take that and actually make queries or detections by writing in the various product query languages and see, okay, do we have any coverage for this in the past? Is this something new that we can, actually make a new detection for? And is this something that isn't already covered by the security products? And then from there, we're very, we're not just set it and forget it. Once we put a detection into production for our customers, we are always open to feedback and review. Like I said, we perform rigorous testing. So, but we're always open to feedback. And that includes feedback from our SOC analysts, because they're one of our customers as well, as we consider them. And, they'll let us know, hey, this detection is great, but we need a little more context here, or you could pull this field. So, we're always evolving and changing and trying to write the best content that we can. And moving on from there, I want to focus down a little more onto threat detection engineering, which is my piece that I'm really passionate about. And so what we do is create, curate, correlate, and validate threat detection queries. So what the heck is a threat detection query anyway? Well, to make it simple, it's basically just a query and a query language, you might be familiar with, SQL or KQL. It's writing a query that could catch behavior that a threat actor is performing. So the absolute simplest example would be saying, writing a query that triggers when a certain hash is found on a device. And that's a very simple level, but that would be an example of a detection. And we try to level it up from there by identifying gaps in detection coverage. So you may be familiar with the MITRE ATT&CK matrix, and we, base a lot of our content off of that, and we'll try to make sure that, okay, this threat is performing this privilege escalation technique. Do we have any coverage for that piece in the MITRE ATT&CK matrix, or is there a gap that we could cover? So we'll go in and identify that, and we map all of our detections to the MITRE ATT&CK matrix. And customers are actually able to see that too, what we have mapped and what parts of the attack matrix that we have full coverage for. And we also like to enhance our detections if we see a new threat that's emerging and say, hey, they're doing, this type of enumeration or this technique that's pretty similar to something we've seen before. Well, we can go back and hit, punch up our queries, say, okay, we'll add in this path, we'll add in this command, and we try to make our detections dynamic so that, we're not stuck in the mud. We can be dynamic and move quick if needed. And on top of that, we also always validate our detections. What I mean by that is this rigorous testing. We never put a detection into production that won't fire on the malicious behavior that we're looking for. So, if we say we're going to find a certain activity, we mean it. And we always, are very serious about that. We make sure that testing is successful. We confirm that, there's no flood of false positives because customers wouldn't be happy with a lot of false positives, and especially our SOC would not be happy if we were just flooding the queue with tons of false positives. So we take it very seriously to write, high fidelity detections that find what we're looking for. And another cool thing that's enabled by our amazing product team is we're able to write our detections as code in these YAML files. And then we have something called Threat Navigator that pushes that detection out to every single customer. So, we don't have to manually deploy one by one. We can say, hey, this detection's ready to go. It passed testing, boom, pass it to everyone. And, we make sure everything syncs up correctly, and it kind of works like magic. It's really, really cool to watch, and, helps us be flexible and quick. And same thing, if we want to change a detection or add something in, we can, boom, make a change real quick, deploy it, and it goes out to everyone. And that's, it doesn't even matter what security product we have. We write it for every product that we support, and then we're able to, boom, pass it out to all of the customers using that product. So it's pretty cool. And to go into an actual example of, our team's response and what we do whenever there is an emerging threat, I'll talk a little bit about Redline, which is an info stealer that has been kind of, it kind of keeps popping up. It's been around for a while, but it seemed to change and become more known and more widely distributed because it's actually, considered malware as a service. People will sell Redline to others for them to use. So we noticed that this was an issue, and there was some really good research done by our team to find some different ways to detect Redline and what it does, because its whole goal is to be evasive. So we saw an opportunity and went for it. And now I want to give a breakdown of kind of the research that my team receives, after it's passed through CTI, threat research, and malware reverse engineering. This is kind of the breakdown that my team will get and what we work off of to make, cool detections that can actually find the activity we're looking for. And so I kind of have these in order that we use the most. And so step one, we get all the MITRE techniques used by malware. So a full breakdown from our threat research team of, all right, so it starts with, a spear phishing attack, and then they're performing system information discovery, and they're disabling security tools. And, these documents are a sight to behold because, there's so many steps given, and it's so useful for us for, going in there and saying, okay, well, we have coverage for, this enumeration, but we don't have coverage for, this specific MITRE technique. So that's really useful for making sure that we're creating content that is, we're not repeating work, and it's also, something new and useful. And so from there, we take those and we check if we have any potential coverage. And it's pretty cool because a lot of the time we do. And in the case of Redline, from working on content from other past info stealers, we found, well, hey, we actually do have some potential coverage, some other detections we've made in the past that would probably detect Redline. For example, we had, WMI being used to discover defensive software on the host. That was something Redline was often doing, or scheduled tasks, executing commands from suspicious folders. These were detections that we had in the past. And, so if somebody, it was great to have a baseline of, okay, we're, already have some coverage, but let's take it a step further and make our coverage even better. So we'll often go through that. And in this case, we actually went back to that scheduled tasks detection and, updated it and added some additional parameters to better find Redline specific behavior. And from there, we'll also receive malware analysis notes, which is, a further insight into what makes the malware tick and just giving better context. And often this is really helpful for all the documentation we write, because we write documentation for every detection that we provide to our analysts. So they have full context of when they see this detection, they can read our write-up and say, okay, well, I know this is Redline and this is what I can expect to see from Redline. So they can correlate that with what they're seeing in a customer console, for example, and be like, okay, I know what this is. So we try to really work closely with our analysts to make sure that, we're helping them as much as possible to, provide a great security service. And our threat research team will provide detection opportunities, some, potential lines of thinking they think that might be helpful for us to go down, and any previous research done, which is, in the case of Redline, we've been keeping tabs on them. So we had some research from the past and some write-ups done. And then after that, if we don't have everything we need, there's also third-party sources that we can use to further analyze. But in this case, we had what we needed. And so I want to go on a little bit to talk about the pyramid of pain. And, it sounds a little scary at first, but it's actually a good thing for us and a bad thing for the bad guys. If you're not familiar with it, it's kind of a guideline for a detection writing methodology. And what that means is we want to make detections that make it as hard as possible for the bad guys to get around. We don't want them to be able to change something quickly and be able to evade our defenses. We want to really hurt them and make them, go back and completely rewrite what they're doing, or, have them give up. So I'll go over a little bit about each piece of the pyramid and discuss, how it involves us and what our methodology is. So you see there at the bottom of the pyramid is hash values. And we find that a lot of the times, if there's, a very serious emerging threat, vendors or other, researchers will provide detections and IOCs that are just hash values. And these are useful, if you see a hash value that's a known bad file, then boom, that's a true positive. That's really effective. But the flip side of that is that it's trivial for attackers to modify a hash of a file and get around that. Even a really low level attacker like a script kiddie, someone just buying this malware as a service for their own use could, go in, change something, and boom, the hash is different and it's nothing anyone's seen before. So we always stay away from hash values because we know that, they can change on a dime. They're not useless, but if somebody really wants to, they can change it easily. And going on from there, there's IP addresses, which once again can be a useful IOC, but any sophisticated attacker, commonly uses botnets or Flux to, make sure that their IP address is constantly changing and shifting. Generally, only a really low-level attacker would be, sticking with one IP address. So, that's something we shy away from as well, using that as a basis for a detection. And moving on pretty similarly is domain names. That's something else that's easy enough for an attacker to register and keep changing. So we almost never write detections based on domain name. In fact, I don't think we ever have, because that's something that's just very simple for attackers to change. And then we're moving on. Now we're getting a little better. Network and host artifacts. These are, either commands that attackers need to use to, contact their command and control domains, or just general host artifacts like a certain file name that's attributed, or, renaming a certain file. And these are, definitely a step above of domain names. Attackers will seriously have to reconsider what they're doing. And this is, the point where, let's say somebody bought Redline as malware as a service, they might, really be stuck at this point. They're like, well, I can't really change the internals of how this works. I'm not sure I can get past this. So it starts to become really annoying for attackers. But where we really like to focus is the tools and TTPs parts of the pyramid, because these are where, these will make attackers throw in the towel, give up, because they're going to have to take months or even longer to have to rewrite the malware from, a base level and change how it works, how privilege escalation is done, how discovery is done, the techniques that they use, which TTP stands for tactics, techniques, and procedures. So, we really like to focus on the tools, the commands, and, the how are they doing this? How is, this tactic being performed? And we like to, create multiple detections throughout the execution chain to make sure that we can catch it, at the actual technique level. So, attackers are going to have to go back to the drawing board. So that's always where we focus. And, it's definitely a challenge to have to think through, okay, what can we do that will really hurt them? But in the end, it's a much more hardy detection with a lot more staying power, and you don't have to worry about attackers, changing a hash at the flip of a switch. So from there, we took all that Redline information and turned it into detections. And these are just two of the multiple detections we wrote for Redline. But, for example, we keyed in on the registry key enumeration that they were doing that seemed to be happening in, each time the info stealer was used, and, dynamically looking at, okay, what registry keys are being used here or being enumerated. And we also found that they were attempting to disable Windows Defender in the registry in a very specific way. And, using these detections, we can really confirm, like, oh man, this looks like Redline. And, still to this day, we get detections on these and, find confirmed Redline activity. So with that, we move on to our next poll question, which is, what does your company do to stay on top of the avalanche of emerging threats? And you can move over to the poll section again and answer there.
Yeah, and the guys, while y'all are doing that, I did notice that there's several really great questions that are coming in as well. Thank you for writing those down. We are going to make sure that we have time at the end of this presentation to address those. Any questions that do come in that are not addressed on this webinar, because we do have a limited amount of time, please know that somebody will be reaching out to you to follow up and get you those answers. So what does your company do to stay on top of the avalanche of emerging threats? I absolutely love that question. That was a question from Adam, everybody. So
Trying to stick with the theme.
love it. Absolutely love it. Because it is. It's a lot, there's a lot of stuff out
It
there. What do you
is.
pay attention to? What do you not? What tools are there? Which ones are better than others? Why? How? Right? Do we all just listen to the salesperson?
All right, I just closed down the poll.
Awesome.
Anti-phishing services seems to be one of the ones with the top votes there. MDR for sure, but yeah, you guys are right, Adam. I'm sure you know this as well, right? I mean,
Oh yeah.
people, no matter, you can have the best tools in the world, but always people are going to be one of the greatest or weakest links in the chain, right? So
Absolutely. Yeah, I can't emphasize that enough. Definitely, that phishing training and anti-phishing services, very helpful because, that's where a lot of it breaks down.
mhm. It's always fun to see how those come across too, and it's validating whenever here at Critical Start, I know that we have a anti-phishing regimen, right? We all get these
Mhm.
emails, and it's encouraged that if we see one and we think it's phishing, that we sound the alarm on it. That's what you want in your own company, right? But then it's so validating that whenever we do turn that in, that we get that response back thing like, "Yep, you caught us. We tried to fish you," So gamify it, if you will. Yeah.
There was one yesterday, Chris. Did you get got?
Oh, no, no, thankfully I did not. I saw when it came from our CISO, and I'm fortunate enough, I just walk over to his desk. "Hey, man, is this you?"
There you go.
Yeah, but he goes, "Maybe," then I knew. Then I knew.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for answering the poll. I'll go on from there. So, I just wanted to talk a little bit about malware as a service. And we've really seen this pop up in the past few years as a really popular trend. And we're just seeing a lot of new emerging threats as a result. Increased ransomware variants, strengthened botnet capabilities, and cutting edge tools as a result. Because, malware as a service, there will be organizations that their whole product, the way they make money is they will build malware, they will, create software and sell it to people. The prices vary, but they'll be like, hey, we'll sell you Redline for $250 if you're interested. And, we see these, transactions going down on the dark web. And it's really concerning because it creates a reduced barrier of entry because, now these really low level attackers or script kiddies now have access to pretty advanced malware with a lot of, defense evasion techniques, and they also make it really user friendly because these, organizations are trying to profit as much as they can off of selling their software. They make it easy to use. They, will give it a GUI and make it, very user friendly. And they'll even have support teams, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, we provide 24/7 support. Just message our, support team, and we'll help you out." But it's concerning because it's malware, and it's really escalating the sophistication levels of your everyday guy. And we're seeing evolving techniques since these organizations are trying to provide the best product they can. They're really evolving techniques and really changing, what they try to exploit and trying to find new vulnerabilities, because then they can advertise, hey, we can get around everything. We can get around MDE, Microsoft Defender. We can get around this or that. And it really creates this incentive for them to, create cutting edge malware. And then because of this wide distribution, we're seeing a huge proliferation of phishing attacks. And also on top of that, I want to mention AI. Um, you know, AI isn't at the point yet where it can, just code up some effective cutting edge malware for you, but it can definitely help you write a really convincing phishing email. So, we've really seen an uptick in phishing and the effectiveness of that, because now anyone has access to these language models that can, type up some pretty convincing stuff at, a little more convincing than they were in the past. And, just like Chris and I were talking about, social engineering tactics are on the rise, and especially spear phishing as well, targeted phishing of, attempts on people to try and get in. And the outcomes as malware as a service in general are just, a rise in malware infections, increased malware variants, increased data breaches, and just more exploitation of weak and compromised passwords. So more than ever, you need to stay on your toes and make sure that everything you have is up to snuff, because these malware as a service variants are getting popular, and just making it so that just anybody can be a pretty advanced attacker. So that's all I wanted to talk about, but I'll move it over to Chris, who's going to talk about the future of MDR and how Critical Start plays a part in that.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Adam. Sincerely, this was a lot of good information, man. I really appreciate you putting all of this together. And thankfully, I have the easy part. I only have 3 slides. And the reason why we wanted to bring up this aspect of it, because it is a little bit of a right turn, it's just to share that what it is. Hey, who's Critical Start? What are we doing? Why is any of this relevant? So to back it all up, Critical Start has been in the MDR space for over 8 years now. We recognize the need to have a team like Adam's added into our services. So going from just managed detection and response, we said, what can we do to build our own detections and use them off of TTPs, like Adam mentioned earlier, as well as, hey, the tool sets that we integrate with, they all come with out of what we call out of the box detection. So let's also take a look at those as well. Can they be rewritten to have higher fidelity? If so, let's do that. Let's be very transparent about this as well. All this information, what we do change, where we make those changes, all that's found within our platform, which brings me to the slide we're looking at right now. The next evolution of MDR is to bring on more visibility into those attack surfaces. One of the polls that you guys answered earlier today showed that there's several of us that are on this call that have things like vulnerability management, asset visibility tools, so that you can see, okay, hey, it's one thing to be able to detect when something bad happens, but how on earth can I prevent that bad thing from happening in the first place? And one of the easiest ways is going out and identifying. If those of us that are familiar with the NIST framework, this is going to look very familiar for you. But how do we first go and identify where are my attack surfaces? What is in my network that's not being covered? Now let me go cover that with some type of EDR, XOR, SIM type of tool or program, and then we can start having those detections and responses thereafter. So traditionally, Critical Start, MDR, we've been in the detect and response space. Now we are revolutionizing ourselves into really covering the full NIST framework. So we do have a DFIR team that is able to help with recovery tactics. This includes proactive services like tabletop exercises. Let's pretend as if something bad's happening. Who does what? Who's responsible for what? How do we get you back to good? But more importantly, those of us that have these tool sets today, whether that's a CMD database that you keep, if it's something like Tenable, Rapid7, these different tools that are out there to help identify and protect, let's bring all of that up to the forefront as well. Let's create one single dashboard that will cover the full NIST framework for us so that we can see as quickly and efficiently as possible, where should I spend my time to best protect my network from the bad guys that Adam tries to stop? So that's where, again, you have the NIST framework here. So that's what we're trying to cover. And the way in which we do that is by integrating with those tools to bring all of that in by way of API into our platform. So what does that actually look like? What does the plumbing of that look like? That's what the very next slide's going to show us. So here you have a breakdown of what we have as our platform that we're calling CORE, stands for Cyber Operations Risk and Response Platform. So off to the far left-hand side, you might see some familiarity there with identify and protect, detect and respond, recover. So these different tools that are available, all of this gets pushed into our CORE platform, again, by way of APIs, so that we can then have a comprehensive view of, hey, this is how many assets that you have plugging into your network today. Here's the ones that after we dedupe it, here are the ones that don't have any protections to them, or maybe they have an EDR tool, but there are some vulnerabilities that are on these assets. Even worse, part of Adam's team helps give an overlay to show which one of those vulnerabilities have been actually seen in the wild, which ones have been activated, if you will, and weaponized. So you can have your tool tell you you have 20 to 30 to some of us on this might even have a couple hundred different vulnerabilities that are out there, and 20% of those are saying that they're high vulnerabilities. Look out, go to work, go get these things done. But hey, maybe only a subset of that has actually been weaponized. So if I'm strapped with time, if my CEO is telling me do more with less, I'm going to go work on those that have been weaponized first. And then after that's finished, I want to be able to show the progress over time. So any of us that are either on a board or have to answer to a board, I want to be able to show a report that says, on this date, this is what it said needed to be done. Here's when we did these things. Here's what my security maturity score looks like now. We have definitely gone up. And oh, hey, by the way, all this comes out of this platform owned by Critical Start that helps with hundreds of different customers. So I can actually run a report to see how I match up against my peers as well. So all of that happens within this platform. But then there's the human element behind this as well. Traditionally been MDR. So we have a security operations center. So we're expounding upon that to have the risk and security operations center. So when you need help, you can call out to us. So that's who we are and where we're going in a nutshell. This entire change, by the way, is something that technically had been developed by our product team late last year. I want to say we technically went live with it on Halloween. Woo! But you'll start seeing those of us that are current customers that might be running this call. You're going to see that shift in the platform starting mid-February. So with that being said, guys, I thank you all so much. This has been my portion of our meeting, and I'll go ahead and turn it back over to Victoria to take us home.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a lot of questions that I'd love to get through, but in the meantime, while we're answering, there is one more poll question. So while we're doing the Q&A portion, if you'd please help me out there. All right. Here we go. What is your false positive rate and how often do you change thresholds?
Let's see. So we don't have an exact false positive rate. Well, it depends per detection that we create. But often we try to keep that as close to zero as possible. Our SOC analysts have a very strict limit of what they allow and what type of volume of alerts they expect. So we really try to keep that false positive rate extremely low. It can depend on the detection, but oftentimes we try to do whatever we can to reduce false positives. You know, it's impossible to say we have no false positives ever. There's always going to be false positives from various admin behavior, but we do whatever we can to keep that low. And, you know, I was just looking this week and we have, you know, over 1,000 from the past year, true positives from, you know, detections that we've written. So we really try to keep them high fidelity and really low in false positives.
Depends on environments too, right? Sometimes,
yeah,
because everybody's environment is going to be a little bit different, which makes it a little little nuance to answer that accurately.
Exactly. And we, test it across many different environments and have different methods for, getting an idea of, okay, how often is this going to fire? Will it be easy to determine if something's a false positive? That's really important because we have the ability to, filter out any false positives. And if the remainder would be, true positive malicious behavior, then, that's worth exploring.
Absolutely. Have you had any feedback from regulators, even if via a customer?
Let me think. I don't know if I have personally, since I'm on the detection engineering part of that. I usually just focus on my code, and so I don't often interact with customers to know about that. But Chris, what about you? Have you heard anything?
Nothing specific as it relates to detections that are infused into our customers' environments. I think every now and then we might get like auditors that ask, "How is this done?" and
Hmm.
what are the permissions that are allowed on our side to do that, and what other things can we be doing with those permissions, which we stay very narrow in scope. So, um, I I'm not sure if I'm directly answering that question, but if not, we can definitely circle back around.
Hmm.
How does Critical Start compare to ReliaQuest and Arctic Wolf? Does CS
Who?
have an
I'm just
agent
kidding.
on all? Does Critical Start have an agent on all endpoint devices? Is there a list of solutions that we integrate with?
Great question. If you don't mind, I can take that one. So we do not add our own agents onto any endpoints. Everything that we do is a tie-in into a tenant. So speaking specifically with EDR and SIM tools, we'll tie right into that tenant to then bring over certain information. So there's no extra overhaul or need really to have something else running on all of your endpoints for us. When it comes to ReliaQuest, I will say this because I always want to keep everything positive and neutral, right? There's a reason why you know of these companies. It's because they do a good job. I'm not here to discount anybody. I will say that what's with ReliaQuest, I understand that they have something that's called gray matter, which is similar to the platform that Critical Start has. There's a separate platform. In this case, it's their gray matter, and they bring information over. One of the things I know that they've done over the past year is incorporate the cyber threat intelligence piece into it. So you can, as an alert is showing up, it says, "Oh, hey, here's some CTI that's kind of tied to that." Which honestly, yeah, I think that's pretty cool. We do it a little bit differently on our side. We do have what's called bulletins. So all of the CTI, which is updated daily, is put into there. All the threat detections that have been released, details of that can be seen in there as well. If you want to understand and actually see the queries behind that, you can go into the products page of our tool to see exactly, hey, what are those ISCs that are live in my environment, and what are the queries behind that. Last piece I'll put on there is that if there's anything that selfishly I can just plug in about us, specifically when it comes to the security aspect of it, is going to be our security operations center. Our guys, we have something between 90 to 95% retention rate out of the SOC, and those that we typically do lose out of the SOC, those 5%, generally fall in somewhere else. Either they are working with the TDE team, they are in support, right? So we as a company don't really lose anybody. And what's nice about that is when you have analysts that have been with a company for 3, 5, 7 years, and you as a customer with this as well, talking about false positive rates, true positive rates, they start to really understand your environment a lot better than companies that have a much higher turnover rate. I could go on more, but I'll stop there.
Great, thank you. Is it possible to extract data out of core system to bring the info to our dev teams instead of them coming to core?
Ooh, the short answer is yes. The longer answer is by way of API. we have an entire documentation page within the platform that shows exactly what you can pull out by way of API and how to do it. But what data is that? How does that work? That I would love to take that offline and get into some more specifics for sure.
Great. Let's see. Does this solution give one-click mitigation option?
Close. No, I'm just kidding. Possibly. So the thought process on the next evolution of the MDR is, hey, here's an asset that doesn't have any protection on it. Click here, put on the protection. Right. That's where we're heading. Can I tell you confidently that I'm there right now today? I can't, because it's being launched here in mid-February. Additionally, when it comes to detections and threats, hey, this thing is happening. What can I do about it? There are what we call threat analytic plugins, TAPs for short, that can take mitigating actions. You can either remove a file, revoke sessions, if we have tie into like your Active Directory, for example, reset passwords, isolate a machine. There's certain things that you can do with a button, but for the most part, there's still going to be some type of follow-up.
Great. What would you recommend as a path to a comprehensive solution?
I've answered a lot. I don't know if Adam, you want to take that, or you want me to keep going?
Oh no, go for it.
Yeah, I honestly, I do think that the path really is utilizing the best in breeds that are out there to put into one comprehensive outlook. I like to say that because, hey, that's what we're trying to do. I recognize there's still a lot of other programs out there that we could be integrating with directly even, but I would hesitate to say, hey, here's this one company out here that's saying that they can do everything that these other companies are doing separately. They can just do it all at once. I think that whenever we find that in the wild, what you actually end up getting is a little bit of a push pull, right? So maybe this one company is doing something really, really well. Like Abnormal comes to mind for anti-phishing. Exonius comes to mind for asset visibility. If you try to take one company that says, I'll do all of that, don't integrate with it, I'll just do it all right here, I think you're going to give up something there.
Great. I think we have a couple more we can hopefully get through. If we need to link our various sources of scanning that we have to this intelligence, what would be the basis of the correlation? CVE IDs or some other higher level grouping based on name type?
That's a great question. There is an answer for that. It would come from a different Chris that has a higher title than me, Chris Carlson, our Chief Product Officer. So that will definitely be one that I'll follow back around. That was a great question. It deserves a great answer.
Great. I'm just scrolling. Do you integrate with CrowdStrike, Fortinet, Proofpoint, Azure, Sentinel, FW, SAS?
I'm going to go once again and say short answer is yes. Longer answer is Fortinet. Like Fortinet, do I integrate directly? No, we would bring that in by way of a SIM, right? But CrowdStrike, absolutely. I'll be honest, I'm not really sure if our full list is in fact on our website, but I do know like our BDRs and myself included, after this call, we can follow back around with that list. But short answer, as far as SIMs go, we currently integrate with Sumo Logic, Splunk, Sentinel, Devo, and then for EDRs, generally we look at what are the popular ones that are out there that actually do a great job. So that would be CrowdStrike, their top quadrant. Palo Alto Cortex XDR is another great one. Sentinel One is fantastic, especially if they're Ranger and their star rules. And about 10 to 12 others that we can get a list out later.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for attending. I will get working on making sure your ski goggles are sent out.
Hey, all right.
If you have any other questions, a BDR will be reaching out to you within the next day or so. And we'll have Chris follow up with a couple of the questions as well. Thank you so much, and we hope to see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it, everybody. Thank you.